Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the world of Movie Battleground. It is the Marvel exhibition series here on Movie Battleground with all sorts of debates and stuffs. And we have a title, not a title, but the championship round of sorts with Cody Newberry, the Movie Battleground champion, fighting for the finals here with Nicholas Twohig. It's going to be a good one. I am your host for the evening, Caleb Coho, and here to judge this match with me, I have two really solid judges. I got Joe Harrison. How you doing, Joe?
I am doing well. Excited to be here. Big Marvel fan, big debate fan. Two great debaters going up. I'm excited to see how this plays out for us.
Absolutely. And my other judge, Jacob E. West. How you doing, Jacob?
Doing good. I got a compliment from Caleb Coho, so that is off my bucket list now. I can die a happy man. No, I'm excited. We have a championship match. So why listen to me talk? Let's just get to it.
Absolutely. We have two great debaters here tonight. We'll start with the Movie Battleground champion, Cody Newberry. Any thoughts that you want to give before we start this debate?
I'm under the weather. I don't feel great. Nicholas's voice is better than mine. And if I lose, this is still exhibition, so I will still remain undefeated. So screw you all. So,
going over to the sultry tones of Nicholas Twohig. How you doing?
Well, hello there. This is the first I've ever heard about me having a soothing voice in anything, so I appreciate that. It's going to be fun. Apparently, people were not expecting me to be here, and I'm one of those people. So it's very interesting that I'm here. I'm happy to be here. And, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm prepared. Thought of some funny, witty lines to say. See how it goes.
Absolutely. Well, with that, we'll get right into the first debate question. And your first question, how this rounds are going to go, is you're going to get 90 seconds for your opening, I believe, 5 minutes for the freeform in the middle, and 60 seconds for closing. You've opened it before. I don't know why I need to explain it to you. Your first question, first round for this Marvel debate. What is the most heart-wrenching scene in any solo MCU film? We will go ahead. We'll start with Cody on this one.
So when you think of heart-wrenching in a solo movie, you have to have something that really impacts the characters and all around it, kind of takes you by surprise. And I went with the plane crash scene from First Avenger, when he literally has to make the plans for the dance, and he knows at the end he is not going to make that dance. And she responds with, "Don't be late," and that's the last line. It's heartbreaking because Cap is a man of his word, Cap is a man of his honor, and you know this is one at that point he can't hold up to. And it's heartbreaking because he pretty much goes down with the ship because he has to do it for the country instead of what he personally wants, which he changes that later, but again, it doesn't take away from the movie itself. So yeah, I'm going with that.
All right, stopping a little early there. Nicholas, what is your pick? And you're opening whenever you start talking.
Sure. Everybody dies. That's just life around here. You might remember that line when Eric Killmonger entered the astral plane. That is the scene I'm picking from Black Panther as the most heart-wrenching solo movie scene. I had a lot of other heart-wrenching scenes, but apparently those weren't solo movies. So now we're in Black Panther. Listen, this is a moment that sort of creates Killmonger as some people's favorite villain. It really makes him relatable, and the heart-wrenchingness of it is the fact that you see his dad as a young kid. You see the scene where he holds him in his arms in the flashback. And what's worse is in Njobu's reaction is you realize that he's failed as a father. He realized that the son that he once loved, that he wanted to do great things for one day by bringing him back to Wakanda, he's failed. There's a line in the movie it's said by T'Chaka that's like, a father who has not prepared his own son for his father's death has failed as a father. And what's so heart-wrenching about the scene is you actually realize that that's what N'Jobu was going through, beyond on the ancestral plane. And what's worse about it is when you see T'Challa go into the ancestral plane, there's a lot of other Panthers. There's a lot of other ancestors of Wakanda. He's in the Wakandan field. You realize he had so much more to his life that Killmonger missed out on for no fault of his own. And it's what makes him such a relatable villain, because when he goes into the ancestral plane, you realize there's just him and his dad, and he lost his dad at such an early age, you can't help but feel bad for him.
Time.
So that's my opening. Yeah.
All right. All right. Black Panther, Captain America, the First Avenger. 5 minutes for open forum. Have at it, guys.
Yeah, so your problem with meeting the dad, that's classic villain 101 that you're trying to, it's called a heel turn / face turn, when the bad guy gets a redeeming quality that makes him actually, you care for the villain at that point. It's done in a lot of movies, it's done in multiple movies, and it's done in Black Panther again. It's kind of like Scar in Lion King, where he sees the redemption, like tries to get himself back in the good graces. Because that movie's a lot similar to the Lion King. The other problem with this one is it's just the reason why it's heart wrenching is Michael B. Jordan's performance, because he cries and you relate to him. But a lot of villains cry because when they see their dad, it doesn't tell it like this heart wrenching moment, because at the end of the day, you don't lean towards Killmonger, you still lean towards T'Chaka, and that's the problem with it. It's, yes, you show a slight moment that you think, okay, I understand him, but at the end of the day, he's still all the horrible shit that he does beforehand doesn't make up for it.
I think it does. I think it makes you realize why he's been doing all this stuff. Going to yours, the whole time I'm watching, I'm like, Cap, just turn the effing plane around. Like, what are you doing? The reason yours isn't heart-wrenching is because I look at it and I go, this is so stupid. He could turn around, fly over the ocean, wait for someone to come get him. Like, that. I love Captain America, the First Avenger, but I watched that scene and I sat there more confused than I was heart-wrenched, because I was like, why is he doing this? There's so many other options right now.
So the reason why it's not heartwarming, because he's just supposed to circle around the ocean until somebody comes and picks him up. No, he has to take it down because that's where it's heading. He doesn't have the opportunity to turn around because it's running out. He knows the end of game. He has to put it down or it's going to put people's life in danger. I'm sorry that your viewpoint. So he can circle around for a lot longer and still going in the ocean, and he's still going to think. You're just added 20 minutes to the movie that's unnecessary for the same end result. You're still does not take the thing. You understand Killmonger, but guess what? Every great villain, you understand to a certain point that their viewpoints mean something, but it doesn't take away the heartfelt moment that he is literally setting up a dance with her that he is never going to be able to pay off in this timeline, and that's the heartbreak of it. He does not get to go back.
I think you're confusing the heart-wrenchingness being with Killmonger. It's not. It's with Njobu. You get to see a man who can't do anything about the fact that he's failed as a father. And yeah, he cries a single tear, but when he's a younger kid in that scene, his father literally says, "No tears for me." And what's so heartbreaking to him is when Killmonger as a young kid, replies, "Everybody dies. That's just life around here." That's such a horrible thing to live with, and you realize that that's what he grew up in. Yeah, maybe multiple villains have that backstory, but that doesn't make it any less. Like, multiple heroes sacrifice themselves for what they give up what they want to be the hero. Like, it happens. Just because it's happened before doesn't make it any less heart-wrenching. And yeah, okay, fine. The Captain America thing, flying around on a plane, that's what I wanted. Maybe that's not what everyone else wanted. But let's look at our scenes today, how they hold up today. I know, watching that scene now, that Captain America immediately shows up because he traveled back in time.
No, you're 100% right. You can't take what in-game happened. I said in this timeline. In this timeline, it stays the exact same. In the new timeline that he lays down, that makes that scene heartwarming and pay off at a huge rate. That 20 movies down the line, it literally, you get to see that dance that means so much that he was never going to meet in the first time. And that's when Captain America takes something that he literally did it heroic, and he finally did something selfish. And that's what he needed to do more than anything else. That's the whole scene of that scene. That at that point in time, and still until Endgame, you don't know this dance is ever going to happen, and that's the heartbreak. And yes, the father failed as his father. I get the whole viewpoint, but again, the heart moment is not from the characters, it's from Michael B. Jordan, because he puts on that acting performance. But at the end of the day, it's still that viewpoint of Killmonger's an awful human being. You understand why he's doing what he's doing, but it's still circled around with that character, and that's the black mark on the entire movie. Is because he's one of the best villains, yes, because he actually is a villain throughout the entire thing, and this actually makes his character fall into a weakness moment because of that. That's my problem with it.
I disagree, but I respect your opinion. That's kind of how this thing goes. The thing with Catman, he comes back to life 20 seconds later. When you first see the movie, you don't know what's going to happen. When you first see the movie, he immediately comes back to life. It's heart-wrenching because you think he sacrificed himself. He didn't. He winds up coming back to life, and then eventually in Endgame, the Cap of that timeline eventually gets what he wants. So watching it today, I watch it, and I'm not heart-wrenched anymore. I wasn't in the first place because of the whole plane thing, but I'm not heart-wrenched anymore because I know he gets what he wants in the end anyway. Killmonger dies, and Njobu's dead, and he doesn't get to change that. That's what's so hard.
Change that. But what?
No, you said but. No. Okay.
Okay. We're gonna start with Nicholas. 1 minute for your closing when you start talking.
Sure, I dislike emotions completely, but as far as emotions go, this scene really is chock full of them. You get to see, you're talking about Michael B. Jordan's performance, half the scene he's not even in, and it's still heart-wrenching because it creates a character that is one of the most beloved villains in the MCU because he has such a relatable backstory to a lot of the audience that hadn't seen that backstory before about a kid growing up in a neighborhood like that, all on his own. And he was promised something as a kid that he'd be taken back to Wakanda, and you see that he doesn't get it, and his father failed, and he's disappointed because of it. The Cap thing, Cap goes on to do so much more. It's not heart-wrenching. It's more proud. You're more proud of him for sacrificing himself. I still think it's stupid that he didn't turn the plane around, crash it in the ocean, jump out at the last second, swim until he gets caught. So it's really hard for me to watch that scene and feel anything because I'm like, this is kind of dumb, especially when Peggy's not saying over the loudspeaker, hey, Steve, why don't you turn the plane around? But that Steve from that timeline eventually ends up with Peggy. So watching that scene now, I don't feel heart-wrenched because I know that Steve eventually gets what he wanted all along. And the Peggy with a husband.
All right. Cody, 1 minute for your closing when you start talking.
And we always think that Cap's the heart-wrenching thing, just like you. I misinterpret your. It's Peggy. Peggy doesn't know the end result. Peggy doesn't know anything goes on. Peggy gets this surprise at the end, but in this scene, she literally says, "Don't be late," even though she knows it. And when the speaker goes silent, she knows that she just lost the love of her life and never knows it's going to be at. Yes, you may see there's problems or plot holes with the movie, but that's who Cap is as a person, and he's through life. He would sacrifice himself over the lives of multiple people. He wouldn't fly around because that's just who he is. Your scene shows he gets back to Wakanda and he actually stands for something that most people can side with. So his anger and stuff, I want to see because it makes sense for what Killmonger is. This scene knocks him down a peg because he has to be that relatable. I want him to be that through line, that hard ass that doesn't care and takes charge of what he wants to rule. And that's what the problem is. Peggy Carter has this heart moment that she loses her best friend and she'll never get him back for the simple fact that he is gone for saving people when he could have took a selfish moment. He doesn't take a selfish moment till endgame.
Time. All right. That was a really strong fight. I'm going to go ahead and give my ruling first. I think Nicholas has some really strong punches, but for every punch Nicholas threw, Cody had a solid defense for it. And I think Cody was able to push back on what Nicholas said and sell me more on why the plane is ultimately more heart-wrenching. Nicholas's biggest push was that why didn't he just turn the plane somewhere else? And Cody kind of countered that by saying in the plot that he physically cannot. It's on a collision course, so he has to put it down. So I felt like that was a really strong defense. So yeah, I'm giving my point to Cody. We'll go to Jacob. Where are you leaning and why?
Yeah, thanks for not going to me first, because that would have been a tough one. I mean, I'm a father of three, so I definitely see that scene with Killmonger relates to me a lot. In my pick, that would have been the most heart-wrenching moment. But Caleb, just like you were saying, Nicholas gave some punches, but Cody was going right back to that. The one you said with turning the plane around. The other one I thought of too was with Nick saying that that scene is ruined by the other movies, and Cody said, "Well, not in that moment. In that moment, you don't know what's going to happen. Peggy doesn't know what's going to happen. Cap doesn't know what's happened. So I'm also going to have to go with Cody because of that."
Okay. And with that, Cody is going to get the first point. We're moving on to the second question for number 2. Nicholas, you'll be starting first on this one. The question, what antagonist would have better suited Tim Story's Fantastic Four films? 90 seconds for you when you start talking.
Sure. Well, first of all, the answer is Dr. Doom, just in a less stupid fashion. But my answer for this question is none other than Harvey Rupert Elder. That's right. I'm sure you've all heard his name before many times. Mole Man. The reason I'm choosing Mole Man for Tim Story's Fantastic Four is because they're ridiculous. They're ridiculous movies. Chris Evans plays a ridiculous Human Torch. Ian Grufford plays a ridiculous Mr. Fantastic, and Jessica Alba plays a ridiculous Invisible Woman. So you really need a villain to match that. I think the dichotomy of a villain that's sort of created in the center of the earth versus the Fantastic Four who are created out in space is really cool. And just the idea of, first of all, you can change up his origin to fit the movies a little better. You can make him a seismologist who goes missing underground, who finds these creatures underground, his moloids. And I think those would be a more realistic villain for the Fantastic Four to fight, because it's so silly. I think Tim Story's Fantastic Four didn't know how ridiculous they were, and they tried to take themselves too seriously, and they chose a villain that's probably the most serious villain in all of Marvel. And honestly, I would have preferred the movie be a little more serious, but it's Tim Story and it's Fantastic Four. So if we're just replacing the villain, I'm replacing it with sort of a silly villain that you can sort of age up to be taken a little more seriously, but still fit the tone of the movies overall. So Mole Man.
All right, stopping a little early there. Cody, 90 seconds for you when you start talking.
So Tim Story's movie, I agree, is campy and stupid. That's why I think the Skrulls and Super Skrull would have been the best choice, because who is who and what is what and all the back and forth, and they could have just flopped into different characters and made it a very interesting. You could have had, I think Captain Marvel really wasted the Skrulls, and I think Fantastic Four could have done a perfect job with it, like the old woman attacking the thing. I think that would have been hilarious. Different points in the battle, and then them able to wage war on them and figure out the Skrulls and stuff. I think it would have just been an interesting concept, because they went too big too fast. They went with Doctor Doom, which should have been like their third movie. You shouldn't have started right away. You should have led up to something goofy. Yeah, and that's basically what I'm going to say.
All right, stopping early. 5 minutes for freeform when you guys start talking.
Yeah, so I agree with a lot of things you said. I think Captain Marvel wasted the Skrulls. I think Tim Story would have wasted them a whole lot more. I think the Skrulls in Tim Story's movie would have. It came out very close to Mission Impossible with the whole face swapping tech. It wouldn't. I don't really care about a who's who, especially in Tim Story's Fantastic Four. The campiness. Combated by like Mission Impossible at the time, sort of would have felt weird to me. I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
Do you care about anything in Tim Story's Fantastic Four? No, you don't. You care about the campiness, and they would have that advantage. I'm sorry, and I think you made a mistake, because 2004 came out a movie called The Incredibles, and it ended with the Molinator, and now you literally just are going to throw them in the Mole a year later.
Time out.
Hold on.
Underminer. Go on.
Underminer. So you're going to throw him into it in 2005's Fantastic Four? That the Incredibles is one of the best superhero movies? So I'm sorry, I'm really confused, because they want to see that in the Incredibles. They don't want to see that in Tim Story's Fantastic Four. It's too close. What are you doing?
We see him in the Incredibles. He showed up at the end of the Incredibles 2. We didn't get him at all. So
exactly. So it shows up at the end, and now it shows up first in Tim Story's Fantastic Four. You made a mistake.
No. Okay, well, it was just a cameo at the end of The Incredibles. I get what you're saying.
It turns out to be the main villain, the beginning villain of the second one.
Yeah, because it just picks up where it left off. But that's not the point. The point is you got to match camp. I don't like that the Skrulls were wasted at Captain Marvel. You're about to waste them all over again. We'd never get them. Super Skrull, talk about an overpowered villain. You want the Fantastic Four their first time out to face a Super Skrull? Like, that's pretty unbeatable.
No,
it's
that's
kind of
fine.
like fighting Galactus in the second movie.
They beat Doom in the first one. Don't say that's unbeatable.
That's what I'm saying. It didn't make sense. We don't like the first one.
My whole viewpoint is Skrull could be the main guy behind the masterminds, and they're taking out the Skrulls on Earth. It's an interesting concept of back and forth, instead of Jessica Alba in a bra and panties for all the male viewers, or the Thing taking on a group of old women that are actually Skrulls is hilarious to me. A bunch of like built men that are Skrulls pulling Reed Richards across the room, great for me. They have to team up and make it happen. That's what I want. I don't want the Underminer in your movie that you just came out before. Whatever, you call it what you want. It's just it's a edit in the thing. That's the huge problem with yours, is it's too close. It doesn't improve it. It confuses audience, if anything. It's like, is this the same villain that was in The Incredibles?
No, your point would stand that the Fantastic Four came out right after the Incredibles. Everyone was like, what is this family that has the same powers as the Incredibles? So your point to me doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, because the movie happens. The movie's happening, with whether or not we want it. If anything,
right. So you don't pick the same villain. That's like
why not?
Syndrome. You don't pick Syndrome. They just did it, and they did it better.
Right, they didn't do Mole Man. They had Underminer show up at the last second, and that was it. It ended.
It leads into live action. This is a weird Rocky and Bullwinkle bullshit that you're trying to throw at us, and I'm not okay with it.
No, okay. No, I think we need to move past this point because I don't think we're going to agree. So I just want to say I don't think it really matters that The Incredibles came out and introduced the Underminer. I really don't think it does. I want a more realistic. I don't think it matters. I want the villain to match the Fantastic Four. You can't have Dr. Doom and Tim Story's Fantastic Four because it's ridiculous. That the Jessica Alba and her bra and panties, that would happen anyway because it's the Fantastic Four. We're not taking them out, and it's Tim Story doing the Fantastic Four. I don't like it. You don't like it. But if we're gonna do it, why are we wasting the scrolls for a later movie? No one wants to see Mole Man later, but Mole Man would fit in the Fantastic Four. Tim Story's Fantastic Four.
I'm sorry, I 100% disagree with you. I understand it's campy, but that's the problem with it. You make the super camp with Mole Man. That movie's straight to DVD. That is not a selling point at all. You're telling me the Fantastic Four can't take out the Mole Man? I have a huge problem with that.
They do.
The scrolls. I get it. I get the scrolls. I understand that may be a wasted concept, but it at least says that shape-shifting, that who is who, makes it more believable than having to face one of these iconic villains. Yours is just too similar to what came out previous, too campy for what Tim Story gave us. The problem is the Fantastic Four was actually, the casting wasn't off by a terrible margin. It's just the villain, and they didn't know what they want to do. So you would give it a villain of shape-shifting is an interesting concept that you don't know who's who. You can bring loved ones into it and back and forth, and them having to come together as a team, but also having to battle the stuff that they're unsure of. Smart Reed Richards is not wrapping his idea around that they're shapeshifters. That's an interesting concept that I think Tim Story could have actually pulled off to improve that movie instead of going too big and not too stupid.
Got it in.
All right. Cody, you have 1 minute for your closing when you start talking.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Fantastic Four is the best one is The Incredibles, and the Underminer was introduced in that one. And to say it just pops up a year later and to start taking on the Fantastic Four is stupid. That movie is campy, and that's the main problem with it. But if you bring up like a serious villain that is a back and forth that has some fun with it, but not so much camp that's just ridiculous, the Underminer, or the Mole Man, as he wants to call him, is just, I just think is too campy, too goofy. It doesn't make sense. Johnny Storm doesn't even have the interactions with him. But I think with the scrolls and back and forth and like all the ex-lovers that could come out of the woodwork for Johnny Storm, and he has to battle against the people that are just scrolls. They're out to screw with him and have to stretch Reed Richards' brilliant mind instead of like having to reach for toilet paper. Like those stuff happens, but it's an interesting concept of actual villains that would test them instead of ruin them like the Mole Man.
All right. Time. Nicholas, you have 1 minute for your closing when you start talking.
Wrong, sir. I said in my opening that we can keep enough of the Mole Man's origins to make him campy enough to fit in Tim Story's Fantastic Four, but we can change him a bit. We can make him a seismologist, make him a human. Maybe he knew Reed Richards, and he winds up in the center of the earth. He starts controlling the Moleites that are in the center of the earth. It fits because the world's ridiculous. You want to ruin a great villain and a great series of villains in a movie that's going to be bad no matter what because it's campy and it's got Tim Story's Fantastic Four in it. And here's the worst part. You want to use the Skrulls who are shapeshifters on heroes who are not detectives. The Skrulls work with people who are detectives. You want to. If it's all a mystery, the Fantastic Four have never been about solving mysteries. They're not Scooby-Doo and the mystery gang. Super Skrull is way too overpowered. I already saw Johnny Storm take on all the powers of the Fantastic Four. I don't need to see the Super Skrull do it because it didn't work when he did it. Mole Man is not a great villain, but it's not a great series of movies, and I want a villain to fit in the tone of those movies. And I would believe Mole Man as a ridiculous character who we can somewhat take seriously fighting against Tim Story's Fantastic Four.
Wow. Man, that was a really good fight. We'll start with Joe on this one. Joe, since your point didn't count last time, where are you leaning and why?
I am leaning towards, actually, Nick sold me in his closing argument. Cody did have me for most of it, but then Nick was able to sway me with bringing up how the campiness of the Fantastic Four and how the Skrulls would work better with heroes who are more kind of detectives and can really like solve mysteries. And the Fantastic Four has never been about that. He had already seen someone take the powers of the Fantastic Four and it didn't work then. So why would it work with Super Skrull? But we can change up Mole Man, make him like colleague of Reed Richards, who was a seismologist and stuff like that. He just kind of sold me more on how the campiness and what Mole Man could bring to the series as a whole. So I'm going to give my vote to Nick.
All right, we're going to Jacob. Jacob, where are you leaning and why?
All right, let's try this again. Can you hear me a little bit better than last
Yeah,
time?
I can hear you.
Yep.
Okay, sweet. I forgot what I was going to say. Just kidding. Hot take, I actually think the first Fantastic Four is okay. The next two are awful. But I'm going to have to agree with Joe. And Nick sold me on how the little bit of campiness is going to be elevated with Mole Man. You also get his introduction. You find out why he becomes the villain and just why it makes it a full movie.
All right, so with that, Nicholas gets the point, and he's on the board. All right, we get to the third question of the night, which is, what is the most diabolical thing done by a Marvel villain? We will start with Cody. You have 90 seconds for your opening when you start talking.
In the movies.
In the movies.
In the movies.
In the movies.
Okay.
But prior, just set up a little thing. Me and Nicholas both read a lot of horrible stuff, and we said, fuck that, we're not touching that with the 10-foot pole. So,
Not even a little bit.
So the one that I went with is most diabolical by a mile. By a mile. Nothing is even remotely close. And I went with Ego, the Living Planet, giving Peter Quill's mom cancer. Listen, the man that can create worlds and make life and have all this wonderful stuff that he does, he decides to take the woman he loves, gives her cancer, lets her live out her last years of her life, painfully ruining her family, watching her become a shell of herself while he's off doing whatever the fuck he wants. I'm sorry, when you could take somebody out in a second and you let them go out for years with losing their life slowly and painfully, financially, watching your family watch you die, is the worst thing that anybody could ever do. And I dare you to say that cancer is not worse, Nicholas, you son of a bitch.
All right. Nicholas, 90 seconds when you start talking.
We'll wait till 5 minutes for that part. The thing that I chose that is the most diabolical thing ever done by a Marvel villain, Howard Saint and the Castle Family Massacre. That's right. Howard Saint killed dozens and dozens of Frank Castle's family members. You want to know why? Because Frank Castle was there the night that Howard Saint's son died. He didn't kill him. He was there as an undercover cop. Very, very evil motivation. His wife and daughter get mowed down in a truck, and it's all on the orders of Howard Saint. As opposed to just one person, Howard Saint kills a mass of people, all to attack this one human being who really didn't have that much to do with his son's death. It's diabolical in the truest sense of the word. It's done out of revenge. It's done out of nothing but evil thoughts come to ordering someone to massacre an entire family, especially when they're unarmed, elderly, children alike, on an island, unarmed except for Frank Castle. He believes them to be unarmed. But yeah, we'll get into the cancer thing. It's going to be a lot of step in places, not try to avoid mines, but let's do it.
All right. 5 minutes when you start talking, guys.
Look, dude, cancer's awful. All right, let me just get that out right now.
You mean to tell me
No.
that in a comic book movie, an eye for an eye is the most diabolical thing possible? Yes,
It wasn't even an eye.
Stop. Frank Castle is the reason why his son goes away. But it's also, so you're saying the most diabolical thing is sending a bunch of hitmen to do the job for him? That's not diabolical. That's a smart criminal.
Look,
he
man.
doesn't ever pull the trigger on one individual. His henchmen do it the entire time, and Frank Castle mows down people in that. So don't call them unarmed. You're telling me what did Peter Quill's wife do? Love Ego, and guess what? Here's a tumor. Here's a tumor. I hope you enjoy it. Hey, live out your life and watch your family sit around you and pray for you, and nothing's gonna happen because I'm gonna make sure this terminal cancer fucking kills you. Please tell me why mowing down people because there's a son involved? There's a son involved? Guess what? The son has to watch her mother die, and then Ego orders Yandu to pick his ass up, kidnaps him after his mother passes away. Fuck all that.
So, cancer sucks. I'm just going to throw that out there. But I genuinely believe, by the definition diabolical, Howard Saint's actions are more diabolical than that. I hate to play this card. But you're going to tell me Hitler wasn't diabolical because he sent the Nazis to do his bidding? Just because he's not the one actually doing it doesn't make it not a diabolical thing. I know, roll your eyes. But I hate to play the card, but I got to play the card. Listen, cancer's awful. But in Ego's mind, Ego is so much bigger than just Meredith Quill. You say he loved her. He did not. He had several other suitors, and she was just there to reproduce for him. And I know putting a tumor in a human's mind is bad, but if you want to talk about repercussions about a diabolical act, look at Star-Lord versus the Punisher. Punisher became a man filled with vengeance who spent his whole life just trying to get vengeance, and it ruined the rest of his life. Star-Lord went into space, became a space ranger, dated space girls. Cancer sucks. I know, and I'm sorry, but it's one mom versus an entire family and children, and his mom and dad died, his wife dies, his children die, his cousins die.
Okay. I'll let you talk for a while with a bunch of
statements
that you're trying to feed everybody. But listen, if you're talking about who has the better spinoff from the tragedy, fucking Punisher gets the best revenge possible by tying Howard Saint to a fucking car and letting it explode. Peter Quill is affected by this the rest of the movies because he literally is off emotion alone. As soon as he hears that, he fucking shoots the shit out of him, knowing it won't do anything. Listen, you can say that, yes, it's diabolical because he sends out the missions and he actually murders his family because of some action that he was just doing. But it doesn't change the fact that Ego could have taken that person out in a second, quick, painless, nothing were to happen. No, let her die of cancer, slow, painfully, put that family in financial debt. You absolutely know that's a fact. And Peter Quill had to watch his mom die, and then on the orders of Ego to pick up the fucking son off the planet and kidnap him so he's away from all his family. Yes, he turns out all right, but he has to because he's a creature of habit that has to adapt because he lost everything. Ego, and you were saying it, they set up the drug bust to Howard Saint's son, but at the end of the day, you screwed up. He didn't screw up anything. She just loved the man. And instead of just saying, hey, I don't want to be with you anymore, or Brandy, you're a fine girl, here's a fucking tumor. I hope you enjoy your death. Like, that's fucked up. That's the most cruel thing. And he says it nonchalantly. I didn't want to put that tumor in your mom. Fuck you. You didn't have to. You could have just killed her. But no, you want her to die. Slow and painful.
Look, man, it's about intention. Ego is so much bigger than life that was nothing to him. That was just another Tuesday. He's done it a million times before. It's about intention. Howard Saint knew what he was doing, and he knew what that order would bring on this man. And cancer sucks. I'm sorry, it does. But you got to look at the bigger picture. Ego knew that Star-Lord became fine. Cody, please talk.
Well, my whole viewpoint is you can't argue with it because mowing down a family and stuff, yes, it's tragic, but it's literally the eye for the eye moment. That's how he gets back at him. And guess what? I think you actually missed the most cruel scene in Punisher is when he takes out his own right-hand man and throws his wife in the train tracks because he thinks he's cheating on her. There's so many cruel things that Howard Saint actually fucking does. Kills his best friend because he's thinking he's cheating, but he's actually gay and has no.
I'd argue last time that made him so stupid of a villain.
Wow, that was a great fight so far. All right, so we'll get to those closings. Nicholas, 1 minute for your closing when you start talking.
Yeah, let me go first. Okay, great. I'll say it again, man. Cancer sucks, but it's one person versus an entire family, parents, siblings, mothers, wives, daughters, and he has to watch it unfold all in front of him. And you see the repercussions because it turns one man, it ruins the rest of his life. Yes, cancer is a shitty way to go out, and I'm sure it had effects on the families. And Star-Lord gets kidnapped afterwards, but he goes on to have a pretty decent life. And in Ego's mind, it wasn't a diabolical act because it was just another Tuesday. Howard Saint knew that this was a bad thing. Ego had so much bigger plans in mind that this was nothing to him. That's what makes it not diabolical, is the intention behind the action. Okay? Howard's... Look at me. I'm like, actually, I'm trying to argue. I'll see you in round 4, Cody. Let's go.
All right, stopping early, Cody. 1 minute for your closing when you start talking.
He picked the wrong diabolical thing on the Punisher. It's literally Howard Saint taking out his wife and his best friend that mowed down those kids in that family because he decided to think that his gay best friend is cheating on him with his wife and threw her in front of a fucking train track. Cancer, you think about just Peter Quill affected by it. The entire family lost the loved one and also lost the son in the same moment and didn't know how to continue with life. I wish I could continue this on, but I will just end it now. Unlike Peter's mom, cancer didn't end quick for her.
No.
All right. I'm gonna go ahead and just start and get my ruling out of the way. I think this is a slam dunk on Cody's part.
Dude, he's trying to go through a financial crisis, and I was like, "Oh, this is."
I think every point that Cody brought up is that Ego has the ability to end it quickly, but he doesn't. He gives her probably the most terrible, slowest way to die.
You should have let the other mediums be affected, because then you could have pulled the rape scene out, and then you would have had a shot.
Dude! Oh god, that.
Yeah.
Should we do the voting? Anyone want to give me a vote?
I'm gonna go ahead and give Cody my point. Jacob, where are you leaning and why?
Oh, I love picking which is worse, killing a family or cancer. That's a normal Tuesday for me, guys. I mean, there were definitely some big hits by both guys. I'm gonna have to go with Cody for the biggest thing is right at the end of the main argument. He said that's not the most diabolical act in the movie, and that there were other things that Howard Saint did that were more diabolical than killing Castle's family. So I have to go with Cody for that.
Absolutely. So with that, Cody gets the point. All right, so we move on to the fourth question of the round, of the match, and it is: what side character from the Spider-Man comics do you wish had gotten screen time on the big screen? I assume that's what screen time means. Big screen seems redundant. But we're going to go ahead and we are going to launch right into this one. Nicholas, you got a 90-second opening when you start talking.
Sure. Sorry, let me just recover. All right, the character I picked is Kraven the Hunter. I think Kraven's one of Spider-Man's best villains, and I think it's a crime that he hasn't been on screen yet. And I think Kraven as the villain in Spider-Man 3, as opposed to the mishmash of villains that we got, would have been a much better choice. We could have done a deeper character study, not only into Kraven, but into Spider-Man himself, as we see him fight off this villain who is all about hunting, all about mind games. And it would have been a much better way to cap off a trilogy than what we got. And I will fight Cody's choice, which is terrible, in a few seconds. Yeah, short opening, but let's do it.
Super short. We're gonna go over to Cody and get his opening when he's ready to start talking.
That's my favorite thing when somebody says your choice is terrible, just to make.
I've said it every time if you've ever watched the match.
I went with the clear-cut Felicity Hardy, Black Cat. The problem with, I don't care what movie you do it in. I have zero. I think every woman that has been featured in a Spider-Man movie has been weak, non-convincing of a love interest, besides Zendaya in the recently too, because she just doesn't get enough screen time to actually seem like that hard. With Black Cat as a love interest to a Spider-Man, and him having to choose between good and evil, that makes more sense. You had, I will wait for that part. But my whole thing with Black Cat is there's no strong females in that entire movie. Going back to watch the first three, Kirsten Dunst is terrible. Gwen Stacy is Gwen Stacy as Emma Stone. There's nothing groundbreaking with that character, and they put her out in the worst way possible. Black Cat would test Tom Holland's Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire's or Andrew Garfield's as this love interest combated between the real love because he's intrigued by her, but he also knows he has to stop her, and it would be beautiful throughout the entire thing.
All right. We have Felicia Hardy. We have Kraven the Hunter. 5 minutes when you start talking, guys.
I'm sick of superheroes falling in love. Spider-Man's done it so many times. And you say there weren't any strong female characters. Gwen Stacy in the Amazing Spider-Man movies is good. Say what you will about the movie.
Stop.
Liz in Spider-Man Homecoming and Zendaya. Okay, Aunt May is a great supporting female character. He has great supporting female characters. If you want a love interest, I'm kind of sick of love interests in these movies.
But that's the point of Spider-Man. I'm sorry, but main thing is he has two. It's Gwen Stacy, it's Mary Jane, and we've seen those done so much that they're like, oh, I need help, save me from here, watch me scream like this. I want Black Cat to kick him in the chest and take advantage of him, because that's the whole point of what Black Cat is. Like, you love her, but you're right. 50 Shades of Grey style right there. No, I'm just kidding. But my viewpoint is,
you knew what you said.
I want to see Black Cat have a dominant role instead of the need to be saved. That's the problem in the Spider-Man movies. Need to have somebody to save. Adding Kraven to that movie, Spider-Man 3, does not help that movie by any means. It makes it even more campy and stupid, and that's the problem with it. Kraven doesn't fit. Kraven fits in the animated series, does not fit on the big screen for a reason why they never brought it in. Because they've put so much tech side to Spider-Man the entire time. So science, so heavy, that the wild man that comes out of the woodwork that Spider-Man could easily wrap up and take down doesn't work.
No, that's why you bring him in. It's a change of pace. He's gotten too techy. You take Spider-Man out of his element. You have these female characters who need saving. That's what Kraven does. Is he uses your weaknesses against you, and those female characters would be weaknesses. You want to turn Black Cat into just another person Spider-Man saves. I know you want her to fight with him. I'm sick of all these love interests. What we've seen in every Spider-Man movie is a love interest, and I'm sick of seeing it. I want to see better villains. What?
Go ahead.
No, you go. You're good.
I don't want somebody to save Black Cat. That's the problem. There's Mary Jane, there's Gwen Stacy, there's Zendaya. All these characters that literally get saved all the time by him on the screen that are in danger. Black Cat doesn't need saving. Black Cat can kick his ass. And that's the whole problem. So he falls in love with her, but she is the line of crime that he is protected to protect and has to keep back and forth and saying, listen, you can't do this. I'm trying to help you, but I also love you. That's an interesting back and forth. That's not the typical love story. That's not the neighborhood right next to each other. Oh, like love story. Kraven the Hunter, you said screen time. We have to go on the movies. You have to base him in one of these movies, and if you throw him into any of these movies, they don't make sense because they are too science and too techy for Kraven the Hunter. That's why the animated series, when he's just a web shooter, not the Iron Spider-Man, not Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man that knows all, that figures out all the science between fusion and stuff, you just have the simple effect that Kraven would be out of place and webbed against a wall, and that's not an interesting character. That's not... Kraven would be a better choice in a actual movie that makes sense.
I liked your movie a lot better when it was called The Dark Knight Rises.
Oh, interesting that she shows up in 30 seconds of the movie. No, I'm talking about Black Cat, not Catwoman.
Yeah, but every audience member is not going to know that. They're going to get confused because Catwoman has been in so many several movies. Don't even tell me Black Cat isn't exactly like Catwoman. I don't care which one came first, but we've had so many in the movies that we don't need another Black Cat. It's the same, and she's offering the same thing you're saying. Bruce has the same type of romantic relationship, and I'm sick of seeing romantic relationships. Yeah, you might. Okay, first of all, Tobey Maguire does not figure out any fusion thing. That's Doc Ock. He's a smart kid. He's a smart kid, but that's the whole point. You take him out of his element, and then you have to discover what the character is just on their own. That's the concept behind Iron Man 3. It didn't execute well, but it's a great concept to wrap up a film trilogy. And Kraven he has things about him that make him sort of superhuman. So like it wouldn't just be a regular man, and he's a brilliant hunter, and he does it for sport. The Most Dangerous Game is such a fascinating concept, and I want to see. I would like to see that done with Kraven and Spider-Man.
But you already take him out of his element with Sandman. He doesn't know how to counteract with Sandman because that's not a character that he's had to battle before. And yes, you're saying there's similar notes to Batman, but guess what? There's similar characters throughout their whole comic books. Everybody's a ripoff of one thing. But the problem with all of the characters, you're talking about the love interest. You're right. There's too many love interests. But this is the character that actually counteracts that actually has to battle. The neighborhood Spider-Man is actually in love with a villain and can't doesn't know where to choose. It's similar to Batman, but that doesn't make it a bad idea. That makes it a brilliant idea. Because Spider-Man, all he has to do every time is choose between sides, but now he has to choose between right and wrong. That's an interesting viewpoint. We saw him how he went right from wrong in Spider-Man 3 and started dancing and boogieing. I'm sorry, Kraven the Hunter does not fit in any of the Spider-Man movies that have been released today. You see him, he's just an awkward point that doesn't get paid off.
He would fit in Spider-Man 3, and we all know Black Cat and Catwoman are so identical.
Time. All right. So we will start with Nicholas for your 1 minute closing when you start talking.
Wait, even though I opened? Did I open?
Oh, sorry, Cody. That's Cody.
I love to think that we think audience are idiots and can't figure out what the title of Black Cat versus Catwoman. I understand that they're similar in that nature, but at the end of the day, the one problem with all the Catwomans is Mary Jane is terrible in the first 3, and you include Black Cat instead of the Gwen Stacy kiss at the end of 3. You have this interesting concept that takes it off. You don't have to have this, please save me, I'm in danger, scream, blah, all the time. Kraven the Hunter, you throw him in anything. I don't like him over. I think if they would have just went all on board in 3 and made Hobgoblin the main villain, that's a more interesting concept. You already see him out of his element against Sandman, and he ends up counteracting that, and where Hobgoblin and him team up together. Stupid concept. Kraven the Hunter gets out of place, webbed against the wall, doesn't have that effect because you're not going to take him out of New York City and put him in the jungle where he needs to be to have that revenge. You're only going to have him in New York City where he can easily be taken out, and he does not enhance any movie. He actually makes it weird. It's similar to Paul Giamatti in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and shows up at the end. Why is this here? That's what it
Time. All right. Nicholas, 1 minute when you start talking for your closing.
The relationship you pitch is exactly the same in The Dark Knight Rises. I don't need to see it again. Spider-Man's had too many life interests. I want something different. There's no reason he can't be taken out of New York. Why can't Kraven capture him in New York when he's not expecting it and let him loose in the jungle to hunt him down to prove he's the greatest hunter? That's why Kraven exists, is to prove that to himself, and that's an interesting thing about a character we haven't seen. Your point about Sandman being something he hasn't encountered before, that's every character he hasn't encountered before. Every new character he comes upon has the thing that you pitched. So I don't really know what you're talking about there. Kraven would be an interesting, unique twist because it would have a Logan-style ending to Sam Raimi's trilogy where you actually have to explore the character of the hero that we've followed this entire time and where he's at in this moment where it's just his wits. It's just his wits versus this villain who is superhuman, so can go toe-to-toe with Spider-Man, but outsmarts him at every turn because he's a master hunter. Black Cat is just too familiar. I don't want more love interests, and she's not even that threatening of a villain. I don't want to see Spider-Man fight her either because it's so low level and we're so much farther than that. And Sam Raimi's trilogy could have been so much better with Kraven.
Time. All right. I'm going to go to Jacob first. Where are you leaning and why on this one?
All right. I was leaning one way, and then the closing arguments happened. Cody had a really strong argument saying why Kraven the Hunter would not work. And I was expecting Nick to just give up on his closing argument. He was able to defend it and say why it would actually work. Just becoming that master hunter, and then also Black Cat. I mean, I have to agree with you. It's the same as Catwoman. I'm gonna have to give it to Nick on this one.
All right. I'm going to go to me next. I actually am going to give my point to Cody. I think Cody did a better job of saying why Kraven is not the villain that we needed in those movies, that we've gotten villains that have served the purpose that Kraven serves, like Sandman, who takes him out of his element and gives him something new, and was able to kind of defend off of the Black Catwoman stuff, because ultimately does that matter? But yeah, with that, I give Cody my point. It's going to come down to Joe, who's getting your point and why.
I think we are going to be finding a nickname for Nick. We're going to start calling him the closer because he knows how to do a closing argument. He told me he was able to bring up why Kraven would work and why we don't really need more love interest. Cody did put up a hell of a fight, and Cody did have me for the most part. It's just Nick kind of was able to defend what was being brought up against him. So we're going to a speed round, and I'm excited to see what these guys bring in the speed round.
All right, so we are all tied up 2-2. We're going to the speed round question, and the speed round is going to work like this. You're each going to get 30 seconds for an opening, 20 seconds for a rebuttal, and 10 seconds for a closer. whoever gives me their answer first will get it. Your speed round question is, what is the best live-action Spider-Man film?
Spider-Man 2. Oh, can we do things released in theaters, or we'll hold off?
I'm gonna say that like all of them are fine. I mean, everyone here has seen Far From Home, so I think it's fine if you use that.
Well, actually, this is releasing the week after. We probably don't need to do spoilers of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Far From Home. I'm doing Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 3. No, I'm kidding. Spider-Man Homecoming.
All right, Spider-Man 2 versus Spider-Man Homecoming. All right. Cody, you talked first, so you're going to get your 30-second opening when you start talking.
Spider-Man 2 does a unique thing of taking off the first one and making the world grow, but not going overshadowing and keeping the beautiful thing. Alfred Molina's Doc Ock has not been touched again since a villain. James Franco hating him, even the love interest with Mary Jane in this one makes sense in this one. There's battle back and forth of love, the throwing of the car, grabbing him, ripping him apart pretty much, and having him to try to defeat Doc Ock and convince them he's good at the end is a beautiful side of Spider-Man. Spider-Man also having to balance real life and stuff is what you want in a Spider-Man movie.
All right, Nicholas, 30 seconds when you start talking.
Spider-Man Homecoming introduces one of the best villains in the MCU, and the Vulture, Tom Holland as Spider-Man is by far the best Spider-Man. He actually looks like he's in high school, and we finally get to see a Spider-Man in high school dealing with high school problems. The love interest in Liz's way is very good, very believable, and it's a love interest you believe that a high schooler would have. He has problems that you believe that a high schooler would have, and there are very good action scenes in the Washington Monument scene. He uses a lot of cool different technology like Spider-Man uses in the comics and sports culture.
All right, Cody, 20 seconds for your rebuttal when you start talking.
The main problem with Spider-Man Homecoming, it's Iron Spider. That's basically the whole point. It's Tony Stark and him on the journey. It's more of an Iron Man movie at times than it is Spider-Man. You see him battling the same AI technology that Tony has, and that's not fun. Spider-Man 2, you see the love interest carry over from the first one that he can't tell her the story that he wants to because it's going to put him in danger, and it ends with, what, can't I make that decision for me? Can't I choose if I want to love you?
All right. Nicholas, 20 seconds when you start talking.
Mary Jane's a terrible character, played awfully by Kristen Dunst. She cheats on her husband and then leaves him at the altar. It's terrible, and it makes me not like her at all. The CGI is dated. Doc Ock's fine, but it's all dated. Alfred Molina is great, but that's really the only thing. Tobey Maguire makes a stupid face when he stops the train. The practical effects are dated. Spider-Man Homecoming so much better because it's so much more up to date. It's much more closer to Spider-Man, and it's not just an Iron Man movie. Iron Man's just a character who affects him.
All right, 10 seconds for your closer, Cody, when you start talking.
You can say out of date all at once, but the moments still last where they are. The train scene is so iconic and through it, and him ripping apart and to taking everything. Spider-Man Homecoming is Michael Keaton doing an intimidating voice, but he's not that great of a villain. He doesn't show any new things.
All right, Nicholas, 10 seconds to close when you start talking.
Spider-Man 2 literally deals with erectile dysfunction when he doesn't have his effing web shooters going, and Spider-Man Homecoming is much more closer to Spider-Man when we see him deal with actual high school problems.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and go first. I'm going to give my point to Cody on this one. I think Nicholas got a little caught up there at the end in erectile dysfunction.
I mean, it doesn't happen in the movie.
And just sort of like the little things, like the dumb face he makes on the train, it felt like nitpicking the movie, whereas I think Cody took bigger shots that landed better with like saying that it's more of an Iron Man movie than a Spider-Man movie, and how there are more memorable moments in Spider-Man 2, which I don't think Nicholas really countered, so I'm giving my point to Cody. Joe, where are you going and why?
I'm also going to go with Cody. I think Nick got a little bit too caught up in the minutia of everything and just trying to nitpick away at Spider-Man 2, while Cody was able to just have some big hits on Spider-Man Homecoming, and also by being able to talk about how great his movie was. So, yeah, Cody's getting my point.
All right, and Jacob, where are you leaning and why?
I would have to go with the same, Cody. I mean, exactly what y'all said. A lot of Nick's arguments were just nitpicking stuff of not why this movie is terrible, just why it's dated and doesn't look as good as what movies do now, but nothing about how it was a bad movie.
All right, so with that, and your winner of the Marvel Battlegrounds debate bracket, Cody Newberry, taking it in the speed round. That was a hell of a debate from both these guys. Wow, that was a really good between both of you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and start with Cody. What are your thoughts coming off this fight?
I'm gonna nickname Nicholas Cheap Shots McGee. Basically, throw all the stuff you don't bring up in the beginning rounds to convince judges in the final round instead of having an actual debate happen, which is very interesting. More power to you. It's just not how I fight, which is fine. I did get a little heated at the end of that one because I'm like, how does somebody? I would be fine if I lost an argument, but when somebody said you had me for the entire fight and then I'm going to give it because of a minute close, just frustrates the hell out of me. Just use different verbiage for me. But the whole Nick, I never want to fucking see Nicholas again. I never want to see him fight him again. He is literally the Doc Ock to my Spider-Man. I don't know how to fucking battle him. He makes no sense. He threw erectile dysfunction out in Spider-Man. What the fuck? And, lucky he got misstepped with out of date. Still doesn't make it it's just, he was a hell of a fighter. He, again, I hope I don't ever see him in anything in debate because I will probably lose handedly. He has unreal skills in debate. So hats off to him. And judges, I'm apologizing for my little anger, but I get heated very quick on stuff. So, but it was a great match all around. If I lost that last point, I would have saw it coming because if he would have been able to finish the full last sentence, maybe.
I said erectile dysfunction, just started laughing, man.
I know, and I was like, thank God he finally fucking said that and said out of date beforehand, so maybe I have a shot. But yeah, Nicholas, hats off to you, and you even countered cancer as best as you fucking could.
Thank you. I really tried.
One fight where cancer was the attacker, and then and Hitler was the rebuttal. I don't think we'll ever see that in debate again. But we'll go over to our unfortunate loser today, Nicholas. You put up one hell of a fight, dude. I think we're not done seeing you in any form of debate. How do you feel about your performance?
Thanks, man. This was fun. I appreciate the kind words said by Cody. I have some gripes with the judges as well, but that's just the name of the game. What you call nitpicking, I call specificity. But, bygones. It was a fun time, man. I would like to reiterate how awful cancer is. I do not support it in any way. But at the end of the day, this was a good time. I was hoping I'd come out of this with one round off Cody, so the fact that I made it all the way to the speed round was pretty cool. Though I wish the result was different. I had a great time, and I'll be seeing you again. I don't mean to throw cheap shots. I just happen to think of things at the last minute where I'm like, oh, yeah, I should have said that.
It's beautiful. It pisses me off, but it's beautiful.
But yeah, I'll take the cheap shot. That's a fun name.
Absolutely. You played a great match, and I'm sure we'll see you soon. I'll run through our judges real quickly. Jacob, what are your thoughts on this debate? How do you think it went?
Holy crap, is all I can say. That was fantastic. I mean, me personally, I didn't see Nicholas getting out of the first round. I don't think most people did, and he proved why he is a force to be reckoned with. Even though he didn't win, it was a fantastic match between the both of them.
Absolutely. Real quick, Joe, what were your thoughts on this match before we wrap it all up?
This was an amazing match. I'm excited to see what both of these guys have. I until Nicholas just said it wasn't a strategy, I thought that was his strategy, was to hold his cards until the closing, so that way he could win that way. But it's apparently just wasn't like that. But it's a strategy. It was a great match. Cody's a hell of a debater. I don't think anyone has really been able to find a way to beat him yet. And if they do, will commend them. Cody, you do know you will be playing the runner-up of the Nerd Fights tournament in a #1 contenders match in Nerd Fights. How are you feeling about that?
I don't know who's in the tournament, but is Nicholas in the tournament?
No, he was not in the Nerd Fights tournament.
Okay, then I feel comfortable.
Okay.
Until that moment happens, I'm not. I mean, that's cool. I mean, because I didn't get drafted into that tournament by a hat. I'm lucky that I got I'm lucky that I got put in there because I had to win a match that I first had to answer trivia questions. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to whoever I get because we don't know how they are at debating. We just know they can be pulled out of a hat. So, other than that, I should have. If as long as it's not Nicholas, I think I'm confident.
Absolutely. But with that, I think that's going to do it for us. That has been Cody. That has been Nicholas. That has been Jacob. That has been Joe. I have been Caleb. This has been Movie Battlegrounds, and we'll see you guys very soon with another excellent debate right here on Movie Battlegrounds.